going to be conducting an interview for Montana State University. It is November 26, 2016, 10:22 in the morning, and I'm interviewing my grandpa, Donald Miller, about the Miller homesteaders. So, who started the Miller homestead?
Well, Henry and Lydia Miller came from Starkweather, North Dakota in 1911, and I think they probably came on a train. I know my Pennywell side, William and Mattie Pennywell, came on a immigrant car out of Kansas with all their animals, harness, and all their worldly possessions, and landed in Guilford, Montana also in 1911. The men came earlier the previous year to kind of get things lined out and get their name on the land with the Homestead Act. So then they moved their families the following year, and I've got the documentation actually signed, and it's on the wall in the basement for March 11th, 1911. And through the years, we've acquired that back, the Pennywell estate, or Pennywell homestead. But the Miller homestead went another route, and it's not in our possession at the present time. But the Pennywell, which is 3 miles east of Guilford, Pennywell land, has been in the family since inception, and we had our 100th anniversary, of course, in 2011.
So what were the names of the original Miller homesteaders, and what relation are they to you?
Henry Miller and Lydia was my grandparents. They had 6 children, 3 sons and 3 daughters. Lewis was the oldest, and that was my father. And he wasn't able to continue to school. He was the oldest. He had to help on the farm. He got through probably about the 4th grade. And then as he got older and then met my mother, which was 19, 20 miles south of him, and then they got married and they produced 2 sons and a daughter.
All right.
Just a minute, we will cover the Pennywells too, I guess, while we're talking about ancestors.
All right.
William and Mattie Pennywell was my grandparents on my mother's side, and they had 3 daughters and 1 son. The son was died at an early age of spinal meningitis at 15, I believe. So there was no son there to carry on, but the daughters married farmers, and the youngest one there ended up with that farm until they got later in life, and then my brother and I purchased that back from them when they were done with it.
All right. And you mentioned the Homestead Acts, how we required the land. How many acres did the homesteaders acquire?
In a lot of places, they start out with 160 acres, but then in the dry land conditions, the government and the people realized that probably wasn't enough to make a living on, and a lot of it was 320 acres, which is a half section. So in different areas in different states, that's how that kind of changed from 160 to 320.
Wow. And how was the Miller homestead farmed?
Well, when they landed in 1911, well, it was basically all sod, and they had 5 years, I think, to what they called improve on it in order to actually claim it. They had to build a house and break up some sod and turn it into production. And it was farmed with horses to start with, that's all there was. And then there was a few years, probably in the 20s, early tractors started to come, and then there was a switch over to tractors.
Tractors, all right. So horses farmed the land. How many people was it the whole family process to farm the homestead?
Basically, the whole family was involved, and maybe there were some nieces or nephews that maybe came, or cousins. And it was a combination of everybody in the area working together.
All right.
And they'd help the neighbors harvest and all those things.
Gotcha. So during harvest, when they harvested their crops, where did homesteaders store their wheat?
Well, it was started with horse and wagons, and it was all manual labor. They would shovel it off of the wagons into wooden sheds that were on the farm, or they'd build one for that purpose, or be next to the yard, and they could feed the chickens out of it and the livestock. And
How far away was the Miller homestead from town?
the Miller homestead was 16 miles north, and that was a long day to get back and forth with horse and wagons to go get groceries or deliver the grain to town. The Pennywell homestead was 3 miles east of Guilford, which was closer.
A little bit nicer.
A little bit more convenient.
Just a little bit.
But my mother talked about walking back and forth to school from there to town to school.
Yeah, so the school was here in Guilford.
School was in Guilford, but that wasn't built until about 1918s or thereabouts.
So a little bit later.
So yeah, after they homesteaded and the people got here, then they had to get together and get the schools built and start that.
All right, and could you describe the process of hauling grain into town?
Well, it was a long process to start with. They basically had a team of horses and the wagon. Small wagon was 40 bushel, and the big one was probably 60 to 80 bushel. And I believe it was an all-day trip from the north farm, Miller Homestead. Probably stay all night, and get groceries and supplies the next day and head back.
Talked a little bit about the origin of the Miller homestead. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the modern farming of the Miller family. So who farms who's farming for the Miller family now?
Okay, I'll bring you up to date a little more from where my mother graduated from here in 1929. Her 3 children, Lowell in 1950, Diana in 1952, myself in 1960. So that's 2 generations here. And now my family has graduated from here, David in 84, Deb in 87, and Kira in 2016.
And all from the same, the same school, just different names.
Because of the economics and things, and the farms got bigger, and people moved away, where we each had a school in this area, 6 to 10 miles apart. First we started consolidating with Kremlin, which was 2 of us 10 miles apart, to make KG, which David graduated from. And then as my grandkids came along and the population was decreasing more, we included Hingham and Redyard, and now we call it North Star, and Kira graduated from that in 2016.
And Dad and you are currently running the family farm now.
I went to college and got a degree in farm and ranch management, and then David graduated, and he went on to college and got a degree in accounting, and went on to California from college a couple of years and worked as an accountant. My theory was there, if I got him graduated and if he wanted to farm real serious, he could come back and do that. And I figured he would have a good education and something to fall back and supplement the farm, and something he could have the rest of his life. And if he'd have started farming right after high school, he maybe would have always thought that the grass was greener on the other side of the fence and felt like he missed out on something. So that was my thinking, that if he went and done something else and came back, why he would be here for good. And it's worked out great.
He stuck around for a little while, I guess. It's a good thing for us. We know how a farm works, instead of growing up in California thinking our chickens come from the grocery store. All right. And which homestead, well, not homestead, but like lands associated with the homestead do we still have in our family?
Okay, well, when my father and mother got married, they were the oldest in their families, and they had to basically go out and start on their own and bought land and rented land, and so they weren't associated with their parents' farms. And it was tough getting started. We went through the 30s, the Dust Bowl days, and the crops were scarce and the grasshoppers were plenty. I think the story was that they didn't cut a crop the first 2 years, grasshoppers ate it.
Sheesh.
So it was real tough.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
As far as the size of the machinery, we started out with small tractors and narrow implements, 15, 16-foot cultivators. My brother and I, he was 10 years ahead of me, but he was willing to take me in when I graduated, and we formed a partnership. Okay, when we started, my brother, I better back up a little bit. When my brother and I got out of high school, my brother was 10 years older than myself, and I went to Billings to college, and then I came back, and our grandfather, Bill Pennywell, wanted to sell some pasture land, and so we formed a partnership, bought the pasture, bought some cows, and started in the cow business. And then I got married in '63, and we formed a partnership, and the size of the machinery we started out with was small tractors, 15, 16-foot cultivators. We even tied 2 of those together so we could pull more, and one man could run 2 instead of 1, and we pulled 35 feet. Quite successful with that, and then we got into Caterpillar crawlers, and in fact we ended up with a D9 and pulling 72 feet of cultivators and drills. And thanks to hydraulics and things like that, the farms were able to get bigger and less people on the farm, more production. It was quite a time,
process, yeah.
quite a process, and compared to where we are now with automatic steering and guidance, we've seen a lot of changes in agriculture in my lifetime alone.
I benefit from the auto steering.
Kira can witness that and speak to that, and she's participated in that.
Yeah. Ooh, I drive like a snake when I have to drive the combine on my own. It's a little scary. And you went to school at Northern too, right?
I graduated from here, and I had an athletic scholarship, and I went to Billings the first year and had quite a little success there. But when my grandfather wanted to sell the pasture, and that's where I was headed anyway, I wanted to farm. And so then I came back to Havre, which was 30 miles away, and went to Northern and got the farm ranch degree and participated in athletics there also. Got married, so everything was close here, and cattle in the winter, and drive back and forth to college. One of the craziest things I ever seen in '64, we had a blizzard, Christmas time. We didn't get to the cattle for 2 or 3 days. And when we found them, the frost was over their mouth, and we put the hay out, and they had to break that ice loose before they could eat.
Ooh. Oh my goodness.
That was tough.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And that was just you and Uncle Walt, right?
Yeah, 2 of us.
So, when did Dad decide to come back?
Okay, David came back after his stint in California. He got married in '92 to Julie Janasek, and came back, and I took him in as some rented ground, and he helped me farm. And then as I got older, I turned it over to him with pretty much full reign, and pays me the rent, and he's got the reins Didn't have, we dissolved the cattle prior to David's, before he came back in, so he just been involved with the agriculture, the farming process.
And now there's us four, and
And as you kids got older, well, then you started driving equipment and the tractors and helping out, and that's kinda where we are today.
yeah.